Good
It's
morning.
now 10:20. If I could ask people to take their seats, we will begin the the never-ending Transportation Committee meeting just ended. We'll begin the County Development Committee meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Berman,
Berman here.
Brown,
Here.
Ford, Igbó, Kenyon,
Here.
Oniki,
Present.
Fraz,
Here.
Caius,
Caius present.
Shepro, Martin.
Martin here. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 16th meeting. Mr. Caius,
Caius move.
Wonecki seconds.
any comments or questions? Mr. Caius?
Just one comment. I discussed with the recording secretary a small change that will be different, you'll see in the final minutes, but not
The substance, I've seen those too, and the substance is the same. There's just a insertion of a couple of words to clarify the intent. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Igbó, Kenyon,
Yes.
Oniki,
Yes.
Fraz, Caius.
Caius, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Monthly financials. We have the report on file. I'd ask you to refer to that or to contact the finance department with specific questions. In public comment, we have a number of people that have signed up to speak regarding item 7, a proposed vacation of a roadway reservation. And I'm going to change the order of proceeding today to hear that matter first so that those people can speak and move on to more important items than sitting through our entire meeting here. I'm going to turn that over initially here to Ms. Wolnick and ask that she introduce the topic.
We're just waiting to get up the slides here. Thank you. We have a request in the subdivision office for a variance at 4N560 Babson Lane. There is no action item on the agenda today. This is just for discussion purposes. This is located in St. Charles Township, Section 20, and it's to remove a restriction on the parcel that states reserved for future roadway. Next slide, please. This is a location, it's adjacent to some floodplain. It's a long dead-end road that comes off of Dean Street on Babson Lane, and it's towards the end of that at a T intersection. Next slide, please. Here's the parcel. The area is located on the north side of the parcel where Babson Lane would be extended to the northwest to serve the adjacent parcel to the west. I'm going to turn it over now to Megan Baxter, who is online to discuss further about how we would proceed forward with this request.
Megan?
Is John Nixon from the Fire Protection District on? If he would like to speak in this matter.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for inviting me. I'm of interest in this matter relative to whether or not we eliminate this pass-through. I need to have more background on what the future plans are before I'm convinced that it needs to exist at all.
Thank you. In the absence of Megan Baxter, I think I'll volunteer and Jody can fill in. There's a question as to the legal status of the reservation as it exists. And there's also a presidential standard because we have a number of these types of issues that exist in the county. And it was determined that it would make sense to understand the issue and to know that we had properly dealt with it as we deliberate. And the state's attorney has requested more time to conclude what they believe to be the existing status of the reservation as it shows on the plat. So today, we really have little to discuss as a committee, but we do have people that have registered to speak on that. And I will, well, first I'll ask the committee if they have any questions or comments before I go to the public speakers. Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any way just to see a larger area to see what's surrounding the road-wise?
I think if you go back to one previous slide. There you go. So there's two pieces of farmland that come out to Burr Road on the adjacent side. You can't really go north because the area to the north is all floodplain and floodway. It would be very difficult to build any kind of bridge structure to the north.
All right. As far as accessibility by fire truck, I think that might have been one of the reasons why roads like this are planned for in the future. What is any comment from emergency services with this?
Well,
Our observation, I'm John Nixon, the fire chief for that area. The long dead end road is certainly inconvenient. However, we've managed to handle that situation. For example, a fire at the end of that long road creates a major tactical issue for us regarding the shuttle of water in and out to a large structure. However, that's a pre-existing condition and really has no bearing on this. The other thing I would note is that further down towards Dean Street, there is I believe, a partial dedicated access into the front half of that property, but there's a creek separating the front half and the back half of the adjacent property to the west. So again, the question is what future development would exist in the area to the west? And if that development was to be approved, that we would want to, without this pass-through portion, we would want it to have two ways in and two ways out.
I would just note also under our subdivision regulations, section 1991, cul-de-sac shall be no longer than 500 feet. Also in our subdivision regulations, section 1971, blocks shall not exceed 1,500 feet. Both of these rules would not be met with the termination of this long lane in no ability to extend it to the west. Also per IFC, International Fire Code, cul-de-sacs are required at 150-foot terminus roads where there are more than 30 homes on the road and a secondary point of access is required.
Thank you. Then my other question would be about the water main. Is it a dead end or does it have a way to have a loop?
This is a well and septic subdivision. So as the chief pointed out, if there were to be a fire, there is several areas that Babson-Layton does flood over. But if there is to be a fire, they need to truck in all the water to fight the fire.
Oh, okay.
So point of clarity, that is not considered a cul-de-sac because of the existing future extension. Is that correct in my understanding?
That is, your understanding is correct. It is not a cul-de-sac because of the fact that it was dead-ended with the intent of a future extension.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Caius?
Is this the, excuse me, is this the property that we were talking, that came through zoning?
No.
This is south of that,
Yeah,
Property.
this is west
south and west of that?
of that.
Can we get the closer map?
That would be the next slide.
Next
please.
slide.
The question at hand with the state's attorney is whether this even should be processed through the county process, or this is a matter that would need to go through the court system to void this future roadway dedication. So they currently don't believe it falls under our variance process that's in our subdivision ordinance, which would mean then there would be another process by which they would be able to clear their title.
I should note, Megan Baxter is now online. So, Ms. Baxter, do you want to address this issue, please?
Good morning, everyone. I was actually in the process of writing a memo to staff about this. So I apologize that this is happening sort of on the fly, but I'm happy to let you know that I spoke with our special assistant for transportation, Pat Yeager, and he and I discussed the issue. Vacating or amending a plat is a separate process. We wouldn't be able to give legal advice to the owner of the property about how to go about doing that, but it is our opinion that if this is a dedicated right-of-way, in which case it would have had to have been accepted by the Township Highway Commissioner, that there would be a process for the Township Highway Commissioner to basically use a petition process, and that would remove the dedication. That's an open question, however, because there would need to be evidence that the dedication was accepted, and I haven't gotten that far to determine whether there's anything in the Township Highway Commissioner's records. They did file a release or record a release with the recorder's office, but it's our opinion that that release does not follow the prescribed procedure in the statute and would not affect this if it was dedicated. If it has not been dedicated to the public right of way, then the landowner would have the ability to use a different process to attempt to vacate that portion of the plat. It would be a process, like I said, that we would not be able to give legal advice. We would recommend that the owner of that seek their own legal advice as to how to vacate that portion of the plat. But there is an ability for the Township Highway Commissioner through a petition process, if it is dedicated and has been accepted. Like I said, I don't have the research on whether or not we would give a recommendation as to whether it's been dedicated.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. Baxter?
I was just curious what the, Fraz speaking, I was just curious what initiated this whole question.
That's my interest too. What are we trying to accomplish here?
I think that, Mr. Thornhill represents the petitioner. And if we address him next, I think he can explain the genesis of the matter and where it stands today.
Okay, I guess while I'm commenting, I would just say, if we do come back to this in the future, I'd like to include the Township Highway Commissioner and KDOT as far as review before it comes back to us.
Yeah, the matter certainly isn't ripe for us to comment on it today. Mr. Thornhill?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This matter has been a condition which has existed since 1967. As I noted in my letter that I sent in originally in February, it was common practice for the development committee and the staff at that time to recommend that roads that are extended or roads that are proposed in a subdivision provide for future extension. And that notice was given by the statement reserved for future road. Unfortunately, that is not a dedication, and therefore the process for vacation is not the same as the one we're seeking. we're seeking a simple map amendment, which is not that uncommon for the development committee to process. We've used this before in cases where setback lines were platted on a subdivision where the 35-foot setback from the zoning ordinance was not truly reflected on the platting, and it was a little ambiguous in the actual construction of a home. So we went before the committee and sought and received a map amendment to adjust the building setback line. Building setback line is a restriction, and that is really the level that this reservation has achieved. It does nothing to promote the extension of a road. It only restricts the use of the property so that if a road is someday extended, the right-of-way will not be impeded by some physical improvement. So presently, this reservation serves only as a restriction on the use of that portion of the lot. Now, the question that has arisen before in another area that I referenced in my letter last February dealt with two subdivisions within St. Charles Township, again, about a couple miles from the same property, where Bonnie Valley was developed in the 60s, similar to this development, where there's actually a road that was stubbed right to the boundary of the subdivision, and there was a 40 by 40 foot turnaround easement provided for the end of that road stub. In 1988, Evans Glen, one of the units of Evans Glen, was developed adjacent to the same common boundary with Bonnie Valley. And the road was proposed to intersect and continue the road from Bonnie Valley. The highway commissioner got so much flack from the pre-existing residents in Bonnie Valley that the Evans Glen subdivision plat was recorded showing a continuous connection with the earlier road. But to this day, there's still a woven wire fence that separates the two subdivisions so that access is still not available. The other question to raise and observation to make is that the owner of the property to the west is the Heisley Family Trust. And the purpose that I understand they bought this property for was to preserve it as open space, just as a couple hundred acres of other property they own have been owned for the same purpose. So it's very unlikely they would ever encourage or allow the extension of such a road across the property they currently own. And furthermore, since this is only a reservation, it's still not a dedication. There's still no right-of-way for a road in this area. It's only a restriction on the use of the lot owned by the present owner.
Mr. Thornhill, I neglected to advise you of your 3-minute limit.
Okay.
It's long past, so if you could conclude. Thank you.
All right. I think the bottom line is who would initiate such an extension? Certainly not the owner of the property, nor would the number of people that live along this road would want to see that happen either. I believe there have been several letters that came back that favor the abrogation of this reservation. So I would conclude that this, in the practical reality, is this will never be extended anyway, because nobody's going to fund it. Nobody's going to allow it unless there's an appetite to condemn the owner for this right-of-way. So I think it should be abrogated just as we've requested. And the process within the zoning, or rather the subdivision regulation, already provides for map amendments, and that's what we're seeking here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gaffney, I believe you're the property owner. Do you want to speak in addition to Mr. Thornhill?
Yes, and thank you to the committee for allowing me this time. My only comments is that I bought the property, and under the circumstances when I bought it, that I was told that Joyce Hillquist and Ron Hillquist had this situation resolved years ago, but that's my fault that I did not further check it out. My only comments here is that I've talked to numerous neighbors, and I know that some of them have responded to this, that they're not in favor of ever making this a road or a thoroughfare back to Burr Road. And it's been 54 years. It's been sitting there, and nothing's ever been done with it. So after 54 years, I think that really, in all honesty, for me, I'd like to use the property. But right now, I have sort of got a piece of property that is of no value to me, but it is part of my property, and I'm paying taxes, et cetera, on it. So I would appreciate some concern for that and allow me the right to get my property back. With that, I thank you for the time, and it's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our discussion, I believe, having concluded, we'll move back to the normal agenda. And once we have firmed things up with the state's attorney's office, Ms. Wolnick will proceed to process it in whatever the manner we're advised is appropriate. So.
Thank you.
The other public comment that I have noted here refers to specific petitions, and I believe that the people are signed as petitioners to address issues. So absent any objection on their part or additional people, we will reserve those comments until they're requested, and we will move beyond public comment to the Building and Zoning Division and our report from Mr. Van Kerkhoff.
Good morning. For our building and zoning report, things continue to pick up with the warm weather. I think it cheers everybody's spirits and gets everybody going on home improvement projects. Certainly, we expect to have a high level of swimming pool permits again this year. But also on the other side, people get out in their yard and they see things in their neighbor's yard or in their neighborhood that they're not wild about. So they call us with concerns about abandoned vehicles or parking of RVs or boats, or as the grass begins to grow, if someone hasn't cut it quick enough, we get calls on those. So we continue to field those countywide. Typically we share those with the health department, but they are obviously very busy. So we're happy to pick up that additional work. If county board members have any concerns from their constituents, please forward them to me and our team will follow up on them. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can move on to the zoning petitions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Van Kerkhoff? Hearing none, please proceed with the petitions.
Okay, thank you. We have two petitions this morning that were heard last week by our Zoning Board of Appeals. First one is Sandra Brackett requesting rezoning from F to F1. This is located on the 2040 plan. It's actually shown on the map as being institutional open space. We've researched that, and it's we believe it's a Scribner's error on the mapping. The parcel immediately to the east, which is that same green color, is owned by the city of Aurora, part of their holdings for the Aurora Airport. The parcel in question, which has the red outline on it, in the 2020 plan map was shown in agriculture. It got changed on the 2030 plan map. We could find no record or rhyme or reason why. This has always been in farming and in private ownership. So we believe that to have been a mapping error on that. So we determined that its current intent of that was the for agriculture, since it was not held in by a private institution. Next map, please. Here it is on the zoning map. It's zoned agriculture. You can see it's somewhat surrounded by Sugar Grove and Big Rock to the west. The next map, please. Here it is on the aerial, and you can see it is all predominantly farm uses in that whole area, except for the airport runway and some ball fields, and dotted with other farmsteads. And this is an existing farmstead. Next slide, please. This is the area proposed for the F1. This would allow the new owners to split off the area for residential use, easier for financing and permitting construction, and the rest would still be in agriculture. And this is a young couple that is going to be farming and continuing to invest and contribute to our agricultural economy. Next slide, please. Here's a close-up of the farmstead. Next slide, please. And another close-up, it just separates, again, the house from the agricultural buildings. Next slide, please. Here's the survey that's been the basis for the rezoning and describing the new zoning lot. Next slide, please. And there's the entirety showing the driveway out to Wheeler Road. Staff recommendation stipulations, King County Water Resources Department, new home will be replacing the existing home. New improvements will need to meet requirements of the stormwater ordinance at the time of permitting. Same with the health department, they would need to meet the current well and septic code requirements. Next slide, please. Staff recommended findings of fact that rezoning would create a separate residential parcel for the existing home site. No additional homes would be built on the farm. Next slide, please. Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval with the following stipulations, basically being that for the Water Resources and the Health Department. It's before you this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe the petitioners are also on the line. Thank you.
May we have, excuse me, may we have a motion, please? Yes, moves. Mr. Ford seconds. Comments or questions?
I
Ms.
do have a quick question. Mark, did we then correct our 2040 plan? And I think you said there was a scripters error that it should have been agriculture and it was in the plan as something different.
Yeah, we did. We just recently discovered that and researched it. So we have not taken it back to the Regional Planning Commission as of yet. From a staff standpoint, we didn't want to hold up this petition and the needs of the petitioner. The two are not actually in conflict. As if it was a different type of error, it's not a conflicting land use that would prevent them from moving along with what's been a long established thing. But we will mention at the next Regional Planning Commission and have that recorded in the minutes.
Okay, so it'll be an agenda item at the next
Yes.
Plan Commission meeting. Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Igbo, Kenyon,
Yes.
Woniki,
Yes.
Yes.
Braz, Caius,
Caius, yes.
passes.
Motion carries. The next would be petition 4574.
The next petition of 4574, Deek Farm LLC, requesting rezoning from F District Farming, F1 District Rural Residential. Next slide, please. This is shown area planned for agriculture on the 2040 plan. You can see the subject parcel in red. It's also predominantly zoned for farming. You see some F1 district farm zonings up a little bit to the north and west. Otherwise, it's predominantly agriculture. Here it is on the zoning map. Again, you can see the expansive acres of farm fields, and this is again an existing farm site. There's a close-up. Next slide, please. And another close-up of the existing farm site. You can see the existing home just in the north corner there. Next slide, please. Here's a plat for the proposed F1. Next slide, please. Staff recommend findings of fact. Rezoning would allow the existing farmette to be sold off separately from the remaining farmland. Next slide, please. Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval, and it's before you this morning. I believe a representative for the petitioner is on the line.
Okay, we have a motion. Ms. Winicky moves.
I'll move.
Mr. Brown seconds. I have a question. Can we go back to that plat, please? The survey. Is that a setback issue that we need to address as part of this? That corner of the, well, I mean, I guess the question is, what is that line?
Oh, that's an existing parcel line. The new parcel for the F1 goes over that. If you go back to the overlay on the parcel map, you'll see the same
Okay, so that's not
No, it's not a setback issue,
okay,
but thank you for
That was my
your
only-
keen eye.
that was my only question. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask what the acreage is?
My apologies, I don't have that right at my fingertips.
I'm looking at the top of the plat. I think it says 5 acres, doesn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, typically we encourage them to do a 5-acre plat act minimum. So that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Any
that was
other
my
que-
question.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Igbo, Kenyon,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Fraz,
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Planning and special projects.
You also have in your packet a summary of the activities of our Planning Special Projects team. Most of their work is in conjunction with other committees, particularly Agriculture, Jobs, and Energy and Environmental Committee. Happy to answer any questions, but this is sort of our home committee for us to report on our activities. So happy to answer any questions or just ask that you place the report on file. Thank you.
Any questions? Hearing none. Environmental Resources, Ms. Woolnick.
We have nothing under environmental resources, but under water resources, we have 2 items today. The first item is recommending approval of an ordinance proposing a special service area at 45W 185 Plank Road. This special service area is a bit different from the typical cost share drainage project special service areas that we've established in the past. Currently, the property has been in violation for quite a number of years for bringing in asphalt grindings. They have caused significant issues for Kane County Division of Transportation with those grindings pouring onto the Plank Road right-of-way ditch. We have been working closely with the purchaser of this property, D&D Sky, and they are willing to resolve the violation that occurred by the previous owner. In doing that, this property is eligible for fee in lieu of detention storage. However, the purchaser is not able to fund that fee in lieu of detention storage in one lump sum and has asked to provide the county their fee in lieu over a 10-year period. So this SSA would be established to bring in the funds for the fee in lieu to resolve the detention issue on this property over the next 10 years. And at that point, the special service area would be vacated. So we're recommending approval of this first step in establishing this proposing ordinance for the special service area.
Thank you. May we have a motion, please? Mr. Fraz moves. Mr. Caius seconds. Do we have comments or questions?
Just a quick question for Jody. What were they bringing in? Grindings? you said?
Asphalt grindings, correct. They
Oh,
brought in
asphalt.
about 5 to 6 feet of asphalt grindings, which is what the issue was. The grindings were actually pouring off onto and filling the road ditch on Plank Road.
Wow.
So the purchaser of the property is willing to resolve that as well as pay the fee in lieu of detention. We have a special account for those funds and a regional detention facility that would serve that watershed would then be built using those funds.
Thanks, Jody.
It's a great constructive way forward. Mr. Caius?
And then they pay it back over a period of time, was it?
Yes, they'll pay on their tax bill the fee in lieu of amount over the next 10 years.
And if they fail to pay, then it is
It's an issue with, yeah, it'd be like you not paying your taxes.
Taxes.
So
Yes.
correct, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, may we please call the roll?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Winnicke,
Yes.
Fraz,
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Berger, I see your face. Do we have anything from Office of Community Reinvestment?
We have one cost share project.
Oh my gosh, I skipped it.
It's okay.
Please.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Berger, sit and wait.
We have one cost share project in front of you this morning. It's a very small one. Next slide, please. It's on Adele Court. This court is unfortunately at the bottom of a hill and receives significant water off the roadway, as well as sump pumps that run into the roadside ditch that runs all to the end of the court. And so the neighbors at the end of the court have had issues with not only erosion off the end of the road, but also issues with constant wet ditches through their side yard due to the sump pump flows. Next slide, please. So here's a close-up. In the purple line, you'll see the proposed improvement. It's to catch the water that's coming off the end of the court and route it safely into the drainage system that's located in South Elgin. Next slide, please. Here's some photos. You can see, again, the washout as well as the damaged pavement at the end of the cul-de-sac, and then the really green grass areas that way because of the constant wetness in that area. We've shown kind of on the right-hand side of the picture, the little purple circle will be where the pipe discharges, and that riprap then runs down into a drainage system in the village of South Elgin. Next slide, please. The cost share proposal is for 1/3 of the project cost, Kane County cost share being $2,300. The Adele Court residents will be funding $4,600 for a total project cost of $6,900. And we're recommending approval of the Adele Court cost share. Thank you.
May we have a
I'll move
motion,
that.
please? Ms. Winnicki moves, Mr. Fries seconds. Do we have comments or questions? Mr. Fries?
I'm just impressed that the neighbors were all willing to chip in. Oftentimes, the person at the bottom of the hill has the problem, and nobody, the people that are high and dry aren't that interested in spending money. So congratulations to staff and the residents for putting this together.
Yeah, these are really great programs for resolving
Yes.
historic problems.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Hearing no further comments, would the clerk please call the roll?
Berman,
Herman, yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Igbo. Dr. Igbo,
Yes.
thank you. Kenyon,
Yes.
Oniki,
Yes.
Fries,
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Now, Mr. Berger.
Good morning, Chairman Martin and members of the Development Committee. We do not have any action items for you at today's meeting. I just want to give you a very quick update. Our office is currently working with the Illinois Housing Development Authority to launch the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We're anticipating that application will go live in approximately 3.5 to 4 weeks. We'll give you more detailed information as that date approaches so you can help spread the word about the availability of that assistance. That's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Berger or comments?
Is,
Hearing, Ms.
a quick
Winnicki.
question. Hey, Scott, it's Barb. And
Good morning.
the rental assistance, is that also for businesses as well as homeowners?
No, it's exclusively for residential rent
Okay.
assistance. And the
Okay,
application will actually start with landlords completing their portion of the application and then follow up with individual tenants, which will also need to provide some information to determine eligibility.
okay. Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing no further comments, we have no update on Settlers Hill. Is there any new business to be brought before the group? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to place reports on file? Mr. Kenyon moves, Mr. Berman seconds. Comments or questions? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Berman,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Igbo,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Oniki,
Yes.
Fries,
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. The reports are on file. We have no need for executive session. Mr. Kenyon moves to adjourn.
Second, Berman.
Mr. Berman seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.